passo a palavra ao senhor Ministro Manuel Heitor. Muito obrigada pela sua presença.
Good afternoon to everyone. I believe those in Canada are still in the morning, but anyway, I hope that in the very near future we can organize a presential meeting, probably in an offshore platform in the middle of the Atlantic. And that should definitely be our goal, particularly if the platform is full, energy, renewable energy, sustainable, and in particular, also producing or having a production unit for aquaculture in a way which can be green. And this vision to really develop a blue and sustainable economy is not a new one, but is a very important and relevant as never before, particularly if you remember the report the OECD published about 1.5 years ago, in February 2019. They will argue that the blue sustainable economy will require new knowledge because to require innovation of collaborative agreements among different disciplines, and it will require more than never new observation methods to monitor, to assess the progress achieved. And again, it is for Portugal and the Portuguese research and entrepreneurial communities a very important event to collaborate with Canada. And this collaboration in the two different margins of the Atlantic Ocean, again, is not new, but is more than a need to be strengthened. We have passed and we are living in new times in Portugal, in Canada, and everywhere in the world associated with a pandemic crisis. But if we look the reasons of this pandemic crisis, we know that the scientific evidence more and more shows that it has started in animals and passed to human beings, and that zoonotic diseases or zoonoses will tend to increase if we don't find a better equilibrium for our economic activities, certainly in a context of preserving the biodiversity of our planet. And it is clear that in this process, where many scientists claim over the last year that we are entering in a true new geological era, the Anthropocene, that the most critical issue will be the relations between the oceans and climate and the climate change. And particularly the challenge of better using either the energy of the ocean in a sustainable way, but also use that and from wave to winds, but also understands that the food value chains at the world needs to find a new equilibrium. It is not acceptable at the world level that, particularly in the northwestern worlds, we produce food at very high prices, and there are millions of kids without food, particularly in Africa, in Africa and in Asia. And therefore, a new balance for our way we develop our economies, including the blue economy, needs to be more sustainable and certainly will be different in years to come from those that we have been able to produce in the past. It is important to also remember that within these contexts, we need to brave new horizons of knowledge, particularly in the hydrogen economy, and to decrease the burning of carbon so that we can definitely in the coming 20 years to get to a level of carbon neutrality. And this can only be done with more research, with a lot of new developments, and particularly with new ideas in this regard. I mentioned this aspect because I know the expertise existing also in the Canada entrepreneurial and research system in hydrogen technologies, which will be important either on ocean, either offshore and onshore, particularly related with the onshore, the offshore activities. It is clear that wind production will not be equally dispersed throughout the oceans, but again, the balance between the production of offshore particularly applies to aquaculture, again, together with other disciplines which will produce a clean aquaculture, is a venture which is a joint venture which we should definitely engage. Certainly, I look at it from a research and development point of view, but we know that the way to better develop research and development is also to create new business opportunities, which again cannot be and will not be similar to those created 10 or 15 years ago. And we need really to understand that blue economy is a knowledge-based economy. It needs to preserve environmental conditions, and certainly the advent of aquaculture, particularly for salmon and other species with the world markets, can only be implemented if conceived in a way which is or which preserve the environmental characteristics of our oceans. Also, the scientific evidence has shown over the last few years and very recently that one of the most critical variables which have characterized this imbalance that we live in has been associated with the deposit of plastics in the depth of our oceans. Again, we understand the complexity of the process, particularly of the transformation towards microplastics from plastics disposal along rivers. But this will be a major task in the years to come to better understand how ocean technologies can be further developed to clean our oceans and to better understand also in that regard the way we can look at the so-called circular economy. Why this is so important nowadays? Again, in Portugal, in Europe, but also in Canada and worldwide, we are facing a social and economic crisis as the result of the COVID-19 pandemic crisis, and we need to understand that economic recovery will depend on the way we apply knowledge and development, and particularly we create innovative jobs which are more sustainable in terms of the economic activities they are associated. Portugal is heavily engaged within the European context to open up really industrialization projects which will combine green transition with digital transition. As you know, Portugal will have the presidency of the European Union over the first semester of 2021. That will correspond of the launching of Horizon Europe, but at the same time of the so-called next generation Europe, particularly associated with industrialization agendas throughout Europe for high impact projects. And the way we can bring new ideas to really develop also in the marine food value chains, but particularly a sustainable energy supply will require a particularly and effective pragmatic action over the coming 5 to 6 years. So I thank you again, WavEC, for keeping us alert, for keeping organizing these events every year with different partners in a way to better bridges Portuguese research and entrepreneurial communities with others elsewhere. I remember a few years ago with the meeting with Norwegian experts, and now with Canada, and particularly the 5 main principles we are trying to foster through the Portuguese presidency of the European Union is to understand an European context which is more green, is more digital, is certainly more resilient, but it needs to be social and global. And therefore, collaboration with Canada and Canadian entrepreneurial and research system will be particularly important. Actually, we have been collaborating with Canada in many areas, particularly in space, through the participation of Canada in the European Space Agency. And when I discussed before that one of the messages of the last OECD report in the Blue Sustainable Economy are the need to better look at the planet Earth through new observation methods. It certainly will require systemic integration of in situ sensors with high resolution image obtained from small and smaller satellites at low orbits. So we are in a turning point, in a very interesting, certainly very challenging turning point of our process of digital transition, how to better use in situ equipments, including offshore platforms, with the process of digital transformation, and to combine these with increasing capacity to use advanced IT systems, including methodologies such as artificial intelligence and process of machine learning, which has become to be massified at a level that can be used to improve the way we understand the blue economy. So looking at the blue economy towards the future, it means that in 2030, we need to be in a completely different position that we are today in 2020. And I hope that this workshop can also foster relations between Portugal and Europe at large with Canada. Let me remember you of a final remark. In June 2021, during the Portuguese presidency, we are organizing a major oceans research conference in the Azores Islands, and certainly a message which we want to convey to Europe, but also to Canada and to the United States, and I would say to the world, is an European context which is global, and to strengthen the Atlantic and transatlantic cooperation. So I would like very much challenge António Sarmento from WavEC and all the participants to be aware of the conference, to suggest participating. A main organizer of the conference is certainly the European Commission, in close articulation with the Atlantic International Research Center, which was installed since 2017 through António Sarmento. And again, the idea is to promote collaboration in North-North, North-South, South-South, South-North Atlantic, but more and more to understand the Atlantic as also a living lab for new experiments. We can only understand an effective blue economy if we experiment and do experimentations, which is expensive, it's risky, and therefore it requires multi-funding schemes. As probably you know, and it has been discussed during the meeting, we are very much interested in promoting experimental facilities in the Portuguese coast, particularly in the north of the country, for offshore activities. António Sarmento is leading part of this project with Portuguese industry, and I'm sure that this is one area, among others, where I see that the collaboration between Portuguese entrepreneurial and research system and the Canadian companies and research institutions could create added value, particularly to experiment new product systems, but above all, to develop a platform, for a new type of business, including green aquaculture in terms of clean aquaculture, in particular contributing for a better understanding of the equilibrium we can achieve between the oceans and climate as a critical issue towards a sustainable society. it is clear that we live and we have a single ocean with several regions, and the transatlantic cooperation is more than ever important to better position Atlantic in the current geopolitical context. So again, I congratulate WavEC and António Sarmento in particular for organizing these events, and I hope that towards the next semester, either in terms of the preparation of the Portuguese and European recovery and resilience plans, we can strengthen bridges, we can put in action concrete projects and joint ventures for new experimental fields, but also including the potential industrialization of new products in terms of green aquaculture, but also offshore platforms. Again, I thank you very much, and I hope that you have a very fruitful working day. And let me thank you in particular, the ambassador of Canada in Portugal, that I know was very active with António Sarmento and WavEC in promoting this meeting, and all of those that have participated from the other side of the Atlantic in conceiving this seminar, in preparing lectures, but above all, in developing new ideas, because we certainly know that the future will be different from the past, particularly in these areas of sustainable blue economy. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Manuel Heitor. So now we'll try again to connect João Galamba, the Deputy Minister and Secretary of State for Energy. Please, João Galamba.
Good afternoon to you all. Let me start by thanking WavEC Offshore Renewables and the Embassy of Canada for this organization. Can you still hear me? Can you hear me? Hello? Hello?
We are hearing you.
Oh, sorry. So let me thank you, the WavEC Offshore Renewables and the Embassy of Canada in Portugal for the invitation to participate in this seminar and share the Portuguese ambitions when it comes to climate and energy policies. By bringing together countries, scientists from different countries, companies from different countries, citizens, politicians, we hope to strengthen the links between Canada and Portugal, and this forum is an expression of our excellent bilateral relationships, which we want to deepen. Portugal's sustainable growth strategy is funded upon a more competitive and resilient development growth model, reducing the consumption of natural and energy resources, and at the same time creating new employment opportunities, increasing wealth creation, innovation, and foster emission reductions. This trajectory is anchored in Portugal's National Energy and Climate Plan 2021-2030. This path to carbon neutral economy requires joint action in several strategic areas, with priority being given to energy efficiency, greater diversification of energy sources, increasing electrification, reinforcement and modernization of infrastructure, development of interconnections, market stability and investment, reconfiguration and digitalization of the energy markets, incentives for research and innovation, promotion of low carbon processes, products and services, and improved energy services and informed choices for consumers. The paradigm shift to new energy consumption model is a fertile ground for the development of new business models, more sustainable, more resilient and aligned with long-term objectives of decarbonization. Portugal and Canada share the commitment to decarbonize their economies, acknowledging the strategic opportunity represented by the energy transition. For us, we don't consider the energy transition a burden for consumers, companies, or for the economy. We consider it an opportunity. We should look to the challenges we have, not as hindrances, costs, but the exact opposite, as opportunities for investment, for innovation, and for creating jobs. This is the way Portugal looks at the energy transition challenges. The more mature technologies, wind and solar PV, of course, they play a very important role in our strategy, but they are not the only route within the renewable generation possibilities. Maritime renewable energy production technologies are vaster, and we should discuss them and take advantages of the huge opportunities that Portugal has in this field. Offshore wind is no longer a synonym of bottom fixed offshore. It now encompasses floating wind power generation, which is better suited to be deployed in many locations on the Atlantic shores, such is the case of Portugal. We have at the moment 24 megawatts of offshore wind installed in Portugal, in the north of Portugal, and the grid access to that offshore point allows around 200 megawatts of wind offshore. We believe that Portugal has a larger potential than these 200 megawatts that I just mentioned, and we fully welcome all projects that want to take advantage of the significant offshore resources that we have in Portugal. This is, of course, very important for Portugal's electricity goals for 2030 and 2050. We want to take full advantage of our offshore possibilities, and the innovations that have taken place and the pilot project that we have already implemented in Portugal are doors that will allow us to take advantage of this opportunity based, of course, on the pilot projects that we've already developed. So Portugal is fully committed to take advantage of these resources that are, of course, for electricity to inject in the grid, but also there is a huge potential for offshore wind coupled with onshore solar to have a sufficient use of electrolyzers to be competitive for hydrogen production. In terms of maritime technologies, we want to, apart from floating wind, we have also a huge potential for tidal and wave energy systems. They are emerging technologies that have a very strong potential. Some estimates speculate that if we could harness this type of energy, it could supply at least 10% of the world's energy consumption, and of course in Portugal something around that or even higher. In Portugal there are several projects running and others in the development phase for these new types of renewable offshore energy production. If we could have more international partnerships around these types of projects, they will be very welcomed in Portugal, and we will, of course, create all the conditions for these types of projects to happen. And we strongly welcome partnerships between Canadian companies, Canadian researchers, and Portuguese companies and Portuguese researchers. Portugal, in this sense, is an open country for investment and new opportunities in this area. Of course, maritime renewable energy also plays a huge role in hydrogen. As I said before, coupled with solar and onshore wind, Portugal has a very strong combination of renewable resources. North Europe is very strong in wind, onshore and offshore, mainly offshore. Some countries in the Middle East and North Africa are very strong in solar. Portugal is very strong in both wind offshore, wind onshore, and solar. For this reason, we believe that Portugal is very well placed to take advantages of the opportunities around renewable gases and in particular hydrogen. In this area, we are positioning ourselves with a long list of projects, large, medium, and small scale, more research-based and more market-based. So we want to take full advantage of the opportunities of the resources that we have, renewable resources that we have in Portugal, and to use those to take advantage of the hydrogen opportunities that are now opening in Europe. In that sense, we have opened a we have opened a call of interest for interested parties in developing hydrogen-related projects in Portugal. We received 74 applications. The pre-screening left us with 37, and most of those projects are open to international partnerships. I wanted to speak a little bit about this because one of the areas that we think is quite relevant for Portugal and for Europe and for Canada is actually this idea of partnerships. Our idea regarding hydrogen is that we will go nowhere with no partnerships. Partnerships between countries, partnerships between companies. We need all of those. It is a collective endeavor which will be successful if we collectively deliver, and it will not be successful if we persist on individual paths. So in our national hydrogen strategy, international partnerships and collaboration between countries or between companies are critical for the success of our goals. In this sense, we believe there are huge opportunities for Canadian companies. Canada has a very strong track record in electrolyzers. There are at least two very famous companies in Canada. I don't want to leave anyone out, but at least Ballard and Hydrogenics are two very famous Canadian companies. And Portugal is now positioning as one of the leaders in hydrogen in Europe, and we are looking for partnerships with technological partners to partner with Portuguese companies and Portuguese projects in order to deliver large-scale hydrogen production projects and take advantage of the opportunities that the European Commission has opened in this field. We can never forget that the goal for the European Union for 2030 is 40 gigawatts of installed electrolyzer capacity. Portugal's hydrogen strategy aims to achieve at least 2 to 2.5 gigawatts of installed capacity in Portugal. And we are looking for projects not only that produce and use hydrogen in an integrated fashion, but also the production of equipment that is related to this area. So electrolyzers, it's a huge bet for the European Commission, and of course it's a huge bet for Portugal. And we believe there are opportunities for Canadian companies that wish to enter the European market and scale up significantly their electrolyzer production, that Portugal could be a relevant partner not only to enter the European market, but take advantage of the existing opportunities that the European Commission and the European Union offer to hydrogen, to energy companies that want to produce it, to technological companies that want to produce the equipment that enable the hydrogen economy, to researchers that want to deepen their investigations around hydrogen in order to increase efficiency and productivity and to lower costs. That's the main goal of the European Commission. It's a central goal of the Portuguese hydrogen strategy, and I want to be very clear on this point. Portugal is looking for international partnerships around mainly equipment producers. And since Canada has an excellent track record in this, and since we believe that it's in the interest of Canada and Canadian companies to enter the European market at this stage, where there are huge opportunities to scale up and really grow the hydrogen economy, we believe this is the moment to establish these international partnerships. In this sense, we believe there is a lot of work to do. We want to deepen our relationship with Canada, and we strongly believe this is the opportunity to do it. Fighting climate change is a very relevant goal, but it's a goal that will be more successful the more we collaborate. So this is an open offer to Canada that we can collaborate, team up on a more institutional level, on a company-based level, and even on a project-based level. We are fully willing and fully open to collaborate on levels with Canada, and we believe that forums such as these are crucial to develop and deepen these relationships. So thank you very much for this invitation, and I will I hope that we have a good seminar, because it is seminars such as these that can put not only Portugal but also Canada in a path towards success, to the goals of 2030 and 2050 that we all share. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Minister and Secretary of State for Energy, Mr. João Galamba. So I would like to thank all speakers and thank all of you for attending this webinar. It was a long day. Now I would like just to show you a very, very quick video with a picture of all sessions. And once again, I would like to thank you all, to thank our sponsors. After you log out, a questionnaire will pop up. Let us know your feedback about our seminar. And then don't forget to check our social media and our website to access all the presentations, all the materials from this long day. Thank you, and bye-bye.